Let's be real. Some days teaching feels like getting hit with a tidal wave of emotions, and if you don't let it out, you just might explode. Well, I have the answer for you, and it's probably something you already have, a venting buddy. But let's be real for a moment, not all venting is healthy. So today we're talking about how to vent in a way that helps you survive the stress and protect your professionalism. Yep, this is actually a conversation that needs to be had because trust me, you do not want to be the teacher that gets their foot caught in their mouth in the copy room. Hey friends, welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, the podcast for teachers who love the work but need a little spark to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and passionate educator of over 25 years. If you're overwhelmed by behaviors, disengaged students, and long, exhausting days, you are not alone. But together, we can turn things around and you can teach with confidence and purpose again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, find your favorite pen, I know you have one, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired and enjoy teaching again. Now, if you've been feeling the impact of the daily teacher drain this school year, then listen up. I've got something really exciting coming your way. Behind the scenes, I've been working on something big, something that's going to help you reset, recharge, and reimagine your teaching life in a powerful new way. It's designed specifically for caring creative teachers like you who want to make a shift but aren't sure where to start. Want to be the first to hear about it when it drops? Well, get on the insider list. Trust me, you'll want to be in the know for this one. To get on the insider email list, just go to theinspiredclassroom.com/insider. Let's face it, teaching is deeply emotional work. You're not just covering content, you're navigating a daily roller coaster of behaviors, emotions, expectations. So when you feel like a shaken soda bottle ready to burst like at lunchtime, well, I want you to know we've all been there. But if we don't let off some of that steam from time to time, all that stress gets internalized, and that's when burnout can really start to hit. Now, sometimes it's the little things that just keep piling up and piling up inside of our brains, inside of our hearts. Maybe it's the kind of thing that actually makes your neck wicked tense. That's where I find all my stress seems to appear. Well, I actually remember a time when I had a student who was constantly coming up to me and asking me questions. And it was one of those times when I just had so much else going on. And that particular day, I was just having it. It was just too much. And I know that she actually needed something. But at the same time, I really just wasn't in a place to calmly turn around and talk to her about whatever it was that she needed. I needed that moment to, well, as one of my colleagues would say, fix my face before I actually turned and tried to help this student. So I poked my head around the corner of my classroom wall. I work in a modified open concept school, so all I had to do was walk 2 steps, poke my head around the wall, and make eye contact with one of my teacher friends whose students were actually out of the room at the time. That was kind of a nice thing. And I just looked at her and she looked at me, and that was all I needed to be able to, like I said, fix my face, take a deep breath, give myself that second to then go back into my classroom and approach the girl and see what she needed. When we suppress our emotions, they don't disappear. They actually stew, right? They stew and they build up. And the next thing you know, you could be snapping at your class over pencil, right? That's why having a healthy outlet is really essential. This is where the venting buddy comes in. It's that someone who gets it, who can hear you out, who listens and helps you move through the emotion, not just sit in it. And sometimes all you need is that brief moment of eye contact and a deep breath. And let's face it, sometimes you need a little bit more. So let's start talking about that, okay? All right, so first of all, What is a venting buddy? Well, a venting buddy is a trusted person that you can do something like text midday with a got a minute later, or make eyes with on your walk out the door at the end of the day, or even call on your drive home without needing to filter your feelings. Even better, it's the kind of friend you can go grab coffee with, or maybe chips and queso and maybe a margarita too, with and say, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what happened today. It has to be someone who is a good listener, someone who can empathize with you, right? It's important that a venting buddy doesn't judge you, even when you're having a very messy moment. I'm sure we've all had some messy moments in our careers. And so having someone who really is not there to judge you, but to empathize with you and listen. And here's an important part of what makes a good venting buddy. It's someone who doesn't take your venting as gossip or doesn't fuel the rumor mill. Yes, of course, you can exchange stories and be venting buddies to each other, but there is a time when venting can actually take a turn and become something negative. And we actually want this to be a positive thing for you. A number of years ago, I had a venting buddy where every time we were together, we would end up in a heated gossip session. And I always left the conversation feeling icky. It wasn't helpful at all, and it just made me more and more negative inside a school where the people around me seemed to be just festering in this negativity. I want to just give you that permission. If you ever find yourself in this type of situation where you're having conversations with colleagues, but every time you're in that conversation, it just doesn't feel right, it's such a good idea to take a moment, reflect on what's going on, see how you're really feeling about the relationship, and determine if this person or even this group of people is truly a good colleague to be spending so much time with. Negativity can just get you stuck, and it's so easy to get stuck in it sometimes. And that's why it's really important to understand the difference between a healthy venting buddy relationship and a gossip train that just is headed off the rails. This type of venting is not about being negative. It's not about being gossipy. It's about having a space where you can just be real and honest and human. So here's another good quality in a venting buddy that you should be looking for. You probably want a venting buddy that doesn't try to fix everything or jump into like problem solving mode, unless of course you're asking for problem solving. Truly, it's just about being able to connect, being able to let off some steam, making sure that someone is there to listen to you. I remember, again, years ago, I had one of those kinds of days, right? I remember I had just had some kind of rough run-in with a student, like a call for backup kind of situation. And that particular morning, I saw my principal come in with her Chromebook and sit at my back table for a surprise observation out of nowhere. Well, once that was all over, I shot a quick look to my venting buddy, again, around the corner of my wall, as I was leading my class out to recess. And she didn't ask any questions. She just nodded. She walked over outside and said, "All right, spill it." And in that moment, I really didn't need solutions. I just needed to say it all out loud to someone who understood. And seriously, that 3 minutes, because I'm sure it was just a 3-minute little conversation, helped me to reset and just finish the day like the calm, collected professional that I prefer to be. Now, I actually have some do's and don'ts of venting. And these are do's and don'ts that I have refined over the years. And I have to warn you, we're going to get real here. So prepare yourself, okay? So first, a couple of do's. So the first do is to make time for it. I can't stress enough how important it is to be able to talk about your job, to talk about your day. Not just the positive and fun things, but also the things that are tough. Also the things that kind of get under your skin. That's just human nature, right? So maybe you make time for it, like an actual weekly check-in, or maybe you have, the first 5 minutes of your team meeting is, chit-chatting about this, that, and the other thing, but then getting back down to business. And speaking of that, kind of just getting it out and getting back to business, do use the phrase, I need to get this out and then I'm going to move on. And this is really important because you want to make sure that you're not lingering on things. You're not overly talking about things. Just the other day, we had a team meeting and one of the teachers just really, really needed to get something off her chest. Things were happening in her classroom and, she felt like she just needed to get it out in the open. She needed to talk about it. And just having that 3 minutes during our meeting time was all she needed. She actually told me that it really made her feel better. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. You need to make sure that you're letting out that steam. Okay, now here's where it may sting a little. And I say these don'ts with all the care in the world because I have been there. I have made every single one of these mistakes, sometimes multiple times, and it really was only through some moments of reflection that I've been able to control some of my venting. It's definitely a live and learn type of situation here, and now I want to share with you some of these don'ts. Now, some of these are going to seem like common sense, but I truly believe that it's only through some time of self-reflection, which is what I want this episode to be for you, that you can pause and think, maybe I do need to check myself on some of these don'ts. All right, so the first don't, there are 3. The first don't is don't blast your frustrations to multiple people. I have been there. I have done that. And after some reflection, I realize how bad that actually looks on me. When I'm blasting my frustrations and venting to too many different people, it just starts to become like who you are, right? And you don't want venting to become your part of your personality. Then you can be known as a negative Nelly, right? You want to make sure that, or at least I wanted to make sure that I wasn't seen as a negative teacher. I wanted to be a positive teacher. Okay, now the next don't, again, could be seen as common sense, but let's get ourselves in check for a moment, okay? Don't vent online, on email, and be careful with texting. We'll kind of leave that one up to you because we all have our little texting teacher groups. But online and email, oh gosh, hello, digital paper trail. You've got to be so careful in terms of what you're saying and how you're saying it, right? I've seen some teachers who will post things on their personal Facebook page or something, things that actually make me stop and cringe because I think, oh my gosh, what if your administrator saw that? Or what if the parent saw that? And we really have to make sure that we are only putting things online that we legit wouldn't mind anybody seeing and reading what we're posting. Okay, and here's the biggest don't. And this was the biggest don't that I really had to reflect on myself to get in check. And that is being careful when you're venting with colleagues during the school day, making sure that your students are not witnessing it, making sure that your students or other colleagues can't actually hear you, really making sure that your conversations are indeed private. How many times have you had a colleague come into your classroom and maybe start a conversation with you? And I've had this happen so many times. And then I think about, what are the kids witnessing? What are they figuring that we're talking about? How are they interpreting our facial expressions and our body language? And we really need to consider, if we're venting to a colleague, what that looks like to other people, and especially to other students. So we really need to make sure, and I talk to myself on this as well, because I can catch myself doing this even still, making sure that we're not venting in the middle of the hallway. We're not venting, in the middle of a class where, your students are actually listening in. Okay, now finally, let's talk about who makes a good venting buddy. Well, of course, there's always your colleagues, right? A colleague that just gets it. I personally have a couple that I go to all the time myself. I have one that I can go into her room almost any time and have a vent conversation whenever it's necessary. So helpful during the school day. And I also have one that I can text quickly, and within a week, we have plans for some apps and drinks. Another great option is if you have a teacher friend that's actually at another school. Less overlap, less drama. That's kind of a great venting buddy to have as well. A spouse or a supportive friend who's not in teaching themselves is also a great option for a venting buddy, because the most important thing about a venting buddy is someone who is willing to listen and empathize. Just really that simple. And oh gosh, another great venting buddy is a retired teacher. They've been there, they've done that, they understand, they maybe have a little bit more calm and patience to listen as well, and might even have some wisdom to share if that's what you're looking for. Listen, venting is healthy when done the right way. It's not gossip. It's actually self-preservation. It's part of your teacher self-care. But remember, the goal of venting is to just release, not to spiral out of control, not to get into that negative space that you can't get out of. And the right venting buddy will help you. They'll help you to stay grounded, and they'll remind you of the meaningful work that you are actually doing. And the right venting buddy will help you to stay grounded. They'll give you that release of steam that you really need, and maybe even remind you that you are doing the meaningful work that you are. Now, if you've ever left school feeling like no one understands what you're going through, like you're supposed to take it all and just smile, and if you don't have the right venting buddy, I want to invite you inside our Inspiring Teachers Facebook group. It is filled with caring, creative teachers who are striving to do good in their classroom, and also know that there are some tough days to get through. And sometimes the best thing is to have a community to support you. So go to theinspiredclassroom.com/community to join us. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.